Hello, I am Jason. I am the wizard, and I have Eunice Miranda with me today. And Eunice is the little witch. And Eunice is a student of the tarot, of the herbs, the as far as an herbal practitioner, because that sounds like maybe something else. um, she does house blessings and is an animal communicator. Welcome, Miranda.
How are
I
you?
mean, Eunice.
I go
Sorry.
I go by both. I'm used to it. So
Well, isn't that more official? People calling you by your last name, going, "Hey, Miranda,"
yes, that's very official.
which is also a woman's name too. But Eunice, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me. I'm ready for to dive into some questions and let's see what happens. Let's see what magic we can create.
You know what? I'm all about that. It's just like being in the moment and creating that magic. And what better opportunity than with the little witch? Now, how did you get that name?
Um, my parents actually blessed me with that name after so many just coincidences, and I believe there is no coincidences now. Where I'm like, Mom, we need to take umbrellas. I'm like, Mom, we need to do this. Mom, we need to do that. It's like, and then they're like, no, we don't need that. We don't need to pack all that stuff. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm taking mine. And I would pack these stuffs in the trunk or whatever vehicle we were going in. And then 5 minutes later, the weather would change, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, it's getting cold. And I would go get my jacket. And then I was like, oh, it looks like it's going to start to rain. I would go get my umbrella. And then they're just like, and then they would call me "You bruja," and then, so it just became a nickname like that. It just happens, and even now towards my adulthood, my friends call me bruja. So when I was younger, I was the little witch. Now that I'm just the witch.
Is it a Paquito Bruja?
Yeah, poquito bruja.
That's the extent of my Spanish, by the way. It's just like muy poquito, grande poquito. That's just, maybe a few more than that. And being in that environment where your parents are like noticing that, it was there an aspect of fear because the idea in some families of witches as being like, this is like going to be a ride, kind of a scary ride with a child who has that perceptive knowledge of what's coming up. It can be tricky. How was it?
Actually, I've been very blessed in that aspect because my mom, she and her mom are the two only women that did not go into mediumship. My grandma was very opposed to it, and so she's very Catholic, very rigid in her beliefs, and she imposed that on my mother. But my mother had a wonderful great grandmother and great greats after that introduced this kind of power, this kind of learning to her that allowed her to, hey, this also exists. My mother doesn't accept it, which means that I cannot practice it right now, but I can honor my ancestors in this form. My dad, he's Huichol Indian from Mexico, and he's all about praying with, Father Rock and Mother Stone and Brother Blue Jay. And so he's very much a farmer, like very much naturalist, holistic. And he, before he takes something out of the ground, he blesses it. And so I was very blessed in that sense that they were very supportive and they knew what each child, my sister's gifts, my brother's gifts, and how to work with each one of us as we aged, and so that we wouldn't go out of control.
Yeah, and that you could kind of honor your own gifts rather than question them, right? As far as if the environment is not supportive, if it's like, oh, what you're doing is bad, right? It's like you grow up doubting your gifts and all. You
Exactly.
doubt your purpose, and when we have a sense of purpose, it's like we align with those tools that we are given. And it sounds like you have the deep intuition and to be able to be with with the present with the energies that are around you, and with the animals and all. You had mentioned that you are an animal communicator with like your own pets, but even that like extends to others, does it not?
It does. I've noticed that when I go into a home and there is a pet, immediately I can sense their energy versus the owners. Like it's just like the animals will tell me what's going on in the house prior to the owners. Like the owners will be all peaksy and cute and just like, oh, everything's happy. But the dogs or the cats or the birds will be like, oh, they're lying. And
They
I've
know
noticed,
better.
and it's funny because like it's just wonderful. Like I always would speak with my animals, but now going into my friends' houses, friends of a friends, and then I'm like, I don't say anything unless they ask me. Or if like the other thing is, if an animal is like, you really need to tell them this, but do it in a way that it's their idea, not my idea, that kind of thing. And so kind of suggest things because they need supplements, or they need extra exercises, or they need less exercise, especially right now with COVID. I mean, I got dogs telling me I don't need 7 walks every single day. We can cut it down to 4.
Mm.
And so it's just that humans either go way overboard or not enough. And so animals are just like, hey, we love it that you're home, but give us a break. We don't necessarily have you here 24/7, 7 days a week. So now you guys need to chill. You guys need to calm down. You guys need a timeout. We don't. And so it's very interesting. Like the animals are really communicating and putting a voice on their needs versus like the human needs.
Right, right. It's like they have their own natural rhythms there, and because their owners may be there at home longer, it's like they're upsetting the balance of that. Now I have two Cavaliers, and they're very food focused.
Mhm.
So, if they were to speak to you, they would say, yes, more treats, please. Please tell them more treats.
Probably.
It's like most Cavaliers that get past 10 years old, they're pretty wide, because they're very happy to have their snacks, and it's like, oh, come here, have another snack. It's like, okay, yeah, but ours are pretty svelte, for being older, and it's because we don't like spoil them, but they would probably argue against that.
From the pictures you posted, I think they're highly spoiled.
They are highly spoiled. Yeah. Well, in like affection and stuff, it's like I'm always like on the ground with them, wrestling, playing with them, and but food wise, we feed them really well. They don't get like just regular dog food. It's like uh raw food.
Yeah,
It's
and some dogs do take to that, and it's very interesting that you bring raw food because a lot of people are like, is raw food better for your animal or not? And then you just have to find what's good for their digestive system.
That's right.
Like
That's
you really have to, before you even try anything, consult your vet. If you can get some lab work done to see what is good for their breed, for their nutritional habits, then that's the best way to go. If you introduce new foods, be very cautious of what, how, when, and why. If you're going to be there, don't just give them the carrots, and then go off to work. You come back and you find that they pooped and they threw up all of your furniture. It's not their fault. You can't get mad at them. And then so it being realistic with the routines that you put on your pets is very necessary. You can show them love and affection, but you also have to show them limits and boundaries. What is acceptable, and having that energy with your calm and assertive with your energy and how you speak to your animal, and showing them like, hey, this is appropriate, this is not appropriate. And animals are so smart. They will know what you're trying to communicate to them.
Yeah, that's true. They are very, very smart, very, very clever. They can be very manipulative also, because they can use their their charms and all to like it's like, well, how about just one more snack, all right? One more just like little tidbit, please. Come
It's the last crumb of the bag. I can have it.
on. Yeah. So so tell me about um, growing up in kind of a half Catholic like upbringing, but also uh, did you say it was like Native American, or where your father had a kind of an expanded or different take on spirituality? As far as do you practice Catholicism with while you're like learning tarot and all these other modalities?
Yes, actually, I do. Right now, I've been working with one of my teachers online, and she's been wonderful. She has been encouraging me to open up that side of myself where I'm highly spiritual. I'm very connected with the Lord. I have nothing but utmost respect for anybody that practice Christianity, Catholicism, like all the religions out there. But she has really encouraged me into creating like a Bible verse that goes with the tarot card. And then so I picked, it's the Bible. I have like the random prayer app on my phone. And then I get my tarot card for the day. And then I see the energies. How do they communicate? And then I sit in prayer. And then they give me something like a prayer for the day, like the energy for the day. How can I move throughout the day with ease and grace? And so it's been a work in progress. So it's been 6 months and just getting it that idea that this can be connected, because everything that we do in church is a symbol, and you have all these symbols in the tarot.
Yeah.
I'm like, so it's the symbolic language that you connect together. So if you see a cup on the altar, and then you see the ace of cups, and then you put it together with prayer, that you're being held in space. You're holding space not for only for yourself, but for others. You're being blessed by the divine. You're creating energy of peace, of abundance, coming together to have positive communication with with the people around you, or those that are involved, especially if you're asking questions with the tarot. It makes it more easy, because you're not only having one foundation, you're bringing in two modalities, two very ancient traditions, and putting them together and be able to give a positive message for the masses, or for your little hole in the wall.
Yeah, looking to be able to speak to the experience, the range of human emotion, of the situations that people go through, um, and to find ways to uh, incorporate the wisdom of both, and your connection to both into making something that's cohesive for yourself, something that unifies yourself, much like your name, Eunice, right? As far as like unifying these parts that I think that sometimes it's just about the groups, the people who identify with either being in that group of the tarot readers, or the group of of Christianity that just says, no, this is just what it is, and the other is wrong or whatever. But if you have both inside of you, it's about how you bring those two together, and you're not battling yourself on it,
I,
on
I
those common threads.
I've noticed the more that I resist it, because there is that back in the mind, you have ego screaming, no, you're going to get in trouble. I'm like, no, you shouldn't mix that. And once you start working with ego, once you start saying, no, this is part of myself. I was raised to believe in God. I was raised to believe in nature. I was raised to believe in the spirit of nature. I'm like, and if you really go back to, creation story, it goes like, God created everything. So God created man created tarot, and if you put it together, it should work. Now, there are going to be, like you said, the people that know it's this, or put everything in a box, but if it doesn't work for you, then don't use it. That's the most beautiful thing, is you don't have to use it. If you say that, you don't believe in God, but you believe in source, or like, hey, I believe in butterflies, or I believe in,
I believe in butterflies because yes, my wife cultivates them and I see them every day.
I mean, or you believe in, the magic of nature, or whatever it is that you want to call it, just call it that. I'm like, there's no limits. I'm like, if you just say, I just speak to my higher power. Well, awesome, great. I'm like, but the power is that you believe in something. And you're not out there in no man's land and saying, no, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And because if you focus on the limits, then that's all you have, all these limitations, versus like, hey, I can try this. I don't have to believe in it. I can try it and see if it works for me. If it doesn't work for you, pull back and then you try something else. And it's a lifelong journey.
Something that I've been talking about a lot and lately, although I have always felt it, is having a connection with the divine that is a living connection. And what I mean by that is where one experiences their relationship to God, the universe, source, as opposed to defining what God should be or defining what source should be as a like a mental thing, and then trying to match that definition rather than the experience of it. It's like we look at something like what's happening now for a lot of people, where everyone is like asked to quarantine themselves to stay away from each other. And that's a big test for people, to not have that kind of interaction with others. And it since it is a part of our experience, it's like, how do we put that into a spiritual context? Do we say, well, it's a test of source, or are there opportunities in it? Are we being completely limited in this, or are there opportunities to go within and allow for uh, other areas that are within ourself to open up to under the pressure of the outside, kind of like crack open. And I talk about either we're cracking up at this time, the people who are like getting stir crazy, and it's like, no, I need to go out and be in the world, or are we cracking open? Are we allowing for other parts of ourself to blossom, other identities that can uh, that maybe we didn't have the chance to let them expand before. Now it's like, okay, gotta get out, gotta do this, and in terms of our spirituality, it can be parts of ourself that need to be more involved, that need to be more just out, meaning that we're just out of ourselves more. um and I think that with your own like sense of wanting to communicate spiritually, all right, to others, and do you find that there's more of an impetus or more of a push to kind of turn up the dial on that, to get that energy out?
Right now, in the energy that we do have, people want raw information. They want real information. They don't want the you being PC about it. I've noticed this in work. I've noticed this with my own family, with my friends. They don't want sugar kisses and hugs. They're like, tell me the truth. Tell me, am I being a bee? Tell me if I'm being too hostile. Tell me if I'm. They want that because that stirs up emotions. And we are very much a feeling culture, a feeling species, where
Hmm.
if we're not set in our feelings, if we're out of balance in our feelings, like there's something wrong. We have to figure out that root cause of what's going wrong within ourselves. So that out of balance, we always reach out to those that care about the most, or that we have the most kind of dialogue. And now it's through Facebook, FaceTime. Everybody's going digital and trying to get those connections. And so, I mean, here we are going through Zoom and, having this interview versus, being able to have this discussion in person. So it's just very interesting how people are dealing with the energies that they're overcoming, because think about it like a big spring cleaning. If you have been at home and, if you're, I'm like, I'll use my sister as an example. She is a professional, she's a teacher, she comes and goes, but with SIP in place, now she's teaching from home. She has her 4 kids at home. I mean, it's just, and then she has her husband at home, bless his heart. I'm like, he's going through a really rough time right now. And he's getting tested and everything. So like, there's that uncertainty. Is he positive? Is he negative? And then is there going to be exposure? So, we keep our family in prayer. But at the same time, like, she has to keep continuing the regular routine of getting up, making sure feeding the kids, making sure there's school papers that are being turned in, homework is being turned in, making sure her husband is fed. And because he can't communicate with the family, he's quarantined in his own little bedroom.
Mm.
And then it's just like that kind of stress can, like, drive anybody bonkers. And so, I take it upon myself, to, like, at least once a week, I'm like, hey, have you cracked yet? I'm like, do I need to go pick you up? And then so she's like, I'm fine. She tells me I'm fine. But, that distraction of like, hey, so have you talked, to so-and-so? Have you spoken to, your mother-in-law? Have you reached out to? And just giving her ideas of, like, she loves talking on the phone. She just loves that part because it takes her out of that space of, what's going on in her immediate environment. If I would be talking to my mom, I would be speaking to her about favorite recipes. Hey, Mom, like, give me your chile verde recipe. Let me write it down. If my dad, I'm like, Dad, how are the plants? How are the plants doing? So everybody has a different technique that will bring them, like, back to zero, back to center. And you just have to know your audience. So if you know yourself and you're able to communicate that information to the other person, you could, center them really, really quickly by you knowing what brings them joy. The things that bring the most amount of joy, the most amount of, like, interaction with other people. Hey, remember when we were at that party and we were dancing and we were just, I'm like, I love to dance. So I'm like, of course I remember that dance. And we were like hopping and skipping and just everything, comes together, bringing in those past memories into the present so that they can have that energy to go forward. So, I mean, that's very important. If you know what brings you joy, practicing those little things, if you just pick 3 things, if you're like, the best thing that in the morning, cup of coffee, in the middle of the day, take the dogs for a walk. In the afternoon, listen to some good music, maybe pop in, your favorite DVD and watch a good movie. Anything that will, get you out of the muck of, like, being in the now, but staying present too, because it'll take you out of what's going out in the outside environment, but it'll bring you closer to, like, oh, I needed those 2 hours, to just, like, feel nothing and just be, like, in present, your present energy. And then you can get up and, like, start washing dishes and doing all the other crazy stuff that needs to be done around the house. But for that 2 hours, you were just watching your movie, chilling on the couch with your dogs and just, like, enjoying, the show. Maybe a couple of popcorn.
That's what makes you the little witch, right? As far as, like, knowing, like, how to interact with, like, your family and all that, to just find those ways of just calming them, in these stressful times.
It's been very beneficial, very helpful, especially for my parents and for my sister. I mean, my brothers, they do their own thing. They don't really need that much support. But definitely my parents and my sister, they were very knit, tight family. So, like, being away from each other has been difficult for them. For me, it hasn't been that difficult. I still have my regular work routine. I'm an essential worker, so I get to leave the house. I get to interact with my coworkers and then come back home, and then, I stay at home. But other than that, it's been very difficult on them, because from them being very active in the community, very active outside, to being completely isolated. And it's just like, what do we do now?
Well, I mean, it is a time, like you were saying, you know, a time for spring cleaning, a time for assessing, reassessing, you know, what it is that you are doing in life. What are you not doing in life? What is you know, in your own spiritual DNA that is nagging you or calling you to say, hey, you know, what if you change it up a little bit? You know, take the time now to start moving towards those areas that you feel like you're missing out on. You know, in that, you know, your spirit is you know, looking to align you to a purposeful life. And you know, there's so many distractions that we can, you know, just get caught up in life that uh you know, they just add up. And when we get into a routine, you know, a comfortable groove, that groove can become a rut. And this is like something that can knock us out of that rut, and then where we can be like, okay, you know, what is my next move? And you know, it's where people like myself, like people like you, who are intuitive, who have tools to sit with people and to be able to allow for them to you know, talk about their interests and all, and say, well, you know, what if you spent more time in this area doing this, and to get them excited and get that spark kind of lit within their own being towards a higher calling. You know, that I feel that a global pandemic, that is like a catalyst for so many people, right? It's like not everyone uh, is hearing that call, you know, because they're just caught in the distractions. But it's it, you know, for those that are, it's like, you know, if they are looking for, you know, someone who is both religious and also uh, metaphysical, or again, kind of with the old ways, right? The ways of nature and all, and that's your area of expertise. How can people find you, Eunice?
Um, they can actually PM me through Facebook. It's Eunice Miranda at Facebook. And then let's see, I think I have my Instagram is Eunice Miranda 7778. That's my username. So they can go ahead and send me a message there. And I'm willing to answer questions. And if they need more on a one-on-one, we can figure out on how best possible to figure out how to complete that one-on-one.
Yeah, and like if you were to look at like all of the areas of, you know, because I mentioned like animal communication and house blessing and tarot and all that, is do you teach people how to dance too?
You know what? I do. I do teach people how to dance. I teach little ones. I actually do junior high and high school, and I was also working with college level. So I do Mexican folk dance. So like today would have been our big celebration, Cinco de Mayo, and
Oh yeah, happy Cinco de Mayo.
and I'm sitting at home. I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, today would have been, jam-packed performance after performance, presentations, speaking to the community, and we're sitting at home.
When was the last time you sat at home during Cinco de Mayo?
I want to say it was 20 years ago when I graduated high school,
Mm-hmm. Why?
because I
What,
was a dancer back then.
I was gonna say because you graduated high school and then you're like hungover or something.
I
You're
was like,
just like, no, I'm not going anywhere today. I stayed out all
I was
into the wee hours.
and I still haven't found the magic of dance. So at that time, I was, a high school student. I still loved music, so I was in band. I was in, just creating music with saxophone, clarinet, marimbas, and just like finding my niche on what instrument I wanted to be an expert in. Get to college, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, I could learn music and dance. And I just got all giddy. And, I watched. That's the other thing. I watched for a whole year before the instructor said, get in the front, you're teaching this. And so I was all like, I go, oh, okay, sir. Yes, right away.
That's a lot of pressure is to then teach.
Well, see, that's the thing is that like we had no choice. I'm like sometimes you're pulled into like the spotlight, and I'm not a big spotlight person. I like to stay in the background. I'm like I'll hem, I'll just clean, I'll just pick up stuff. I'll be part of the cleanup crew. But to be thrown in the limelight, I'm like, oh, like I hope I can do this. And to realize that I do have that ability to teach others by observation, that was like the best gift that I received, within the first year of entering college. I'm like, and the fact that my mentor, my counselor, the director realized that, I'm going to use you. You're going to help me with this. And we grew the program, and it was a success while I was in college. Right now, this year, I'm like, all of the projects kind of fizzled out. I'm like, COVID shut us down completely.
Yeah, it is that thing that is like just affecting all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen like with COVID and all, because they call it the corona, right? And because of the associations with the sun and the corona, sometimes when the sun card comes up in readings, it's like I will read it as the virus, as kind of like taking up the center of attention. Everyone's life revolving around this plague, this virus that's like just it's affected all of us in some way or another. And so when the sun card comes out, that's like sometimes that indicating the coronavirus. It's like, 3 months ago it would have been like, what? No, it's the most beautiful card in the deck. And now it's like, it's like, what's going on here?
When I am in meditation and the corona symbol appears to me, it appears as the crown of thorns.
It's pretty spiky.
Yeah, it's pretty spiky. And I'm like, and you see all the little images that are coming out on Facebook. It has the little spikes out on there on the little cell that's roaming around and trying to attack people. But in meditation, I find it very interesting that this thorn crown dissolves, dissolves, and what's left are roses. They still have the thorns, they're still beautiful, but at the same time, it's a message of life, of a new beginning.
Hmm.
So I mean, that comes pretty much from my upbringing being Catholic, and associating the crown of thorns with divine power, with Jesus Christ. Um, and being able to talk to that, like you were saying, being instead of thinking I'm like, oh, I'm going to do 10 Hail Marys, one our Father, and call it a day. It's having that communication with the divine, like, okay, Lord, I'm like, you're showing me the symbol, what would you want me to do with this symbol? Who's in pain? Who is out of pain that would like to seek your word? Or who wants a beautiful message? Maybe it's something of relief, or something. Maybe they're caught in their grief, or they're caught in their, maybe they're going spiraling down and going into depression, or maybe if they just lost their loved one and they just want someone to say, hey, you're going to be okay. And so it's just that, it's always a meditation when I see that, or I hear like the crackling of like branches or something like that. It's a message of rebirth, of how do we want to contribute to our community? How do we want to be that symbol of rebirth within ourselves, but also within the people around us? What needs to change, and what do we need to shed off? Because those thorns are the prickly things that we don't want anymore.
Yeah.
Those thorns are the things that are no longer serving us, and we've been fighting and fighting and fighting, like, and we always go back to that pattern. But this is the perfect opportunity where we can break that pattern. We can completely tear apart that crown and create something new. Whatever it looks like, it's going to be very specific to that person.
Yeah, and to take that energy of love,
Hmm.
and activate our own self, and let love like guide us into like the next version of ourself, and to let that unfold as it as we're as we guide it, and also as kind of the universal forces, as God, as where we allow for that energy to have its say too, and then but going forward in love, that's what brings those roses about, right? Beautiful. Thank you so much, Eunice. You can be found again on the social medias: Facebook, Eunice Miranda; Instagram, Eunice Miranda 7778. But if you type in Eunice Miranda, then you will be found.
Hmm.
You know. Blessings to you. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
No, thank you for having me. It was great.
All right. Blessings.
A lot of blessings to you too.